The night was darker than usual. An unnatural stillness permeated the forest, like the held breath before a storm. The animals were silent, hiding away in burrows and nests. Even the wind had died down to barely a whisper through the trees. Luna shivered and pulled her hood tighter around her face. She shouldn't be out here, not with strange rumors swirling through town about missing pets and livestock. But she couldn't just leave Emma out here alone and frightened. The beam of Luna's flashlight cut a weak path through the dense trees ahead. She swept it back and forth, searching for any sign of the pale yellow dress Emma had been wearing. Luna's heart thudded rapidly in her chest. What if she was too late? A rustling in the underbrush made Luna jump. She swung the flashlight towards the sound. Two tiny glowing eyes stared back at her from the darkness. Just an owl. Luna exhaled in relief. She continued on, calling Emma's name softly. Only silence answered. The minutes crawled by with no sign of the lost girl. Luna's throat tightened with fear. She should turn back, get help, but if she did, Emma could be dead by the time they returned. She had to keep looking. Luna emerged into a small moonlit clearing, ringed by thick oaks. Her breath caught in her throat. There, in the center, sat a hulking form, blacker than the surrounding night. Its eyes glowed red as hot coals, fixated on a small crumpled shape before it. Emma. Luna reacted on instinct, grabbing a heavy branch from the forest floor and charging with a wordless scream. The wolf's head snapped towards her, lips curling back from dagger-like teeth in a snarl. Luna swung with all her strength just as it lunged. The branch struck home against its skull with a sickening crack. The wolf yelped in pain, staggering back. It rounded on Luna now, massive jaws snapping. She barely managed to dodge its attack, slipping on the wet leaves. As she scrambled away, her hand closed around something hard and smooth. A thick piece of tree branch, worn to a point. A makeshift stake. The wolf tensed to spring, hellish eyes burning with predatory focus. Luna gripped the stake in both hands like a spear as she rose to her feet. With a blood-chilling howl, the beast attacked. At the last second, Luna sidestepped and drove the wooden point into its chest with all her strength. Hot blood poured over her hands as the creature thrashed and clawed at her, a strangled gurgling issuing from its maw. She held on desperately, feeling the stake pierce flesh and bone. With one last guttural cry, the wolf collapsed, its struggles growing weaker, then still. Luna stared down at its prone form, almost unable to believe she had survived. The creature was somehow even more enormous up close, easily the size of a bear. Dark blood matted its inky fur. What was this monster? A soft whimper drew Luna's gaze. Emma lay crumpled where the beast had dropped her, her dress torn and bloodied. Luna rushed over, heart in her throat. The girl's face was deathly pale, but she was still breathing. Luna gathered Emma's limp body in her arms. They had to get out of these woods. Now. She ran, heedless of the clawing branches that ripped her clothes and skin. Adrenaline fueled her exhausted muscles. She had to make it back to town, back to safety. Nothing else mattered. Bursting from the tree line, Luna collapsed in the dirt road. Emma held tight against her. They had made it. As she lay gasping for breath, Luna became aware of distant shouts and bobbing lanterns. Help was coming. They were going to be okay. Yet as Luna slipped into unconsciousness, she could not shake the memory of the wolf's burning red eyes, or the feeling that something ancient and evil dwelled within the quiet woods. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Sunny jolted awake, her heart hammering against her ribs. The room was dark, only a sliver of moonlight slipping between the curtains. She took a deep breath, willing her pulse to slow. It was just another nightmare, She had been plagued by bad dreams ever since returning home after her Aunt Luna's strange death a month ago. Luna had been found torn apart in the woods, mauled by a wild animal. The funeral had been closed casket. Sunny tried not to imagine what was left of her aunt's body. She rose from bed on shaky legs, moving to the window for some fresh air. As she looked out over the moonlit yard, a flicker of movement caught her eye. She froze. At the edge of the trees stood an enormous black-furred shape, its eyes glowing like molten lava. Sunny recoiled with a gasp, heart hammering. When she looked again, it was gone. Just a trick of the shadows and moonlight, she told herself. There was nothing really there. Eventually, she managed to fall back into a fitful sleep, but her dreams were haunted by a great dark wolf with burning eyes. The next morning, Sunny decided to pay a visit to Emma, the little girl Luna had saved the night she died. Maybe it would help lay the nightmares to rest. She found Emma sitting listlessly on the front porch of her house, face wan and eyes rimmed with dark shadows. Sunny felt a pang of sympathy for the girl. She knew what troubled sleep looked like. "Hi, Emma," she said gently. "How are you holding up?" Emma glanced up with a sad look. "Bad dreams," she murmured, "about the wolf." Sunny felt a chill creep down her spine at the mention of a wolf. She sat down beside Emma on the creaky wooden steps. "I have bad dreams too," she admitted. Emma looked at her cautiously. "What are they about?" Sunny hesitated. Somehow it felt dangerous to speak of the things that haunted her sleep, but perhaps talking about them would help deprive them of their power. "There's a large black wolf that chases me through the woods," she confessed, "and its eyes burn like hot coals. No matter how fast I run, it always catches me." Emma nodded, eyes wide and fearful. "I see the wolf too, with red eyes. It ... It hurts me in my dreams." She wrapped her arms around herself with a shiver. Sunny felt cold fear blossom in her gut. Her dreams and Emma's were too similar to be a coincidence. And Luna had been chased by a wolf in these very woods, on the night she'd died. What if her aunt's death hadn't been an animal attack, but something far stranger? Sunny stood abruptly. "I should go, but Emma, if you see anything scary, come find me right away, okay?" Emma nodded, lower lip trembling. Sunny squeezed the girl's hand in what she hoped was a reassuring gesture before hurrying away. Her mind was spinning as she walked. There was someone she needed to talk to. Old Jonas, the strange, reclusive man on the edge of town who was rumoured to be some kind of wizard. If anyone knew about malevolent forces haunting the woods, it would be him. Jonas's ramshackle cottage stood apart from the rest of the village, half hidden under the encroaching trees. The man himself sat on the porch, whittling a piece of wood into some kind of talisman. His grizzled face regarded Sunny with suspicion as she approached. "What do you want?" he asked in a rough voice. "I need to know about the wolf." Jonas froze. The wood slipped from his fingers and clattered on the porch boards. "Don't speak of such evil," he muttered through clenched teeth. "Now leave me be." "Please, I think it killed my aunt," Sunny cried. "And it's haunting Emma's dreams." Jonas was silent for a long moment. When he finally looked up at her, his eyes were grave. "Come inside," he said heavily. "But once you know the truth, there's no going back." Sunny followed him into the gloomy cottage, nerves tingling with trepidation. This had better give her some answers. Jonas gestured for her to sit at a rickety wooden table, etched with strange symbols. He lit a few candles, the flickering light casting his weathered face in deep shadow. "There are ancient forces that dwell in those woods," he said. "Predators that lurk in darkness, feeding on blood and fear. Your aunt disturbed one such evil, the Fenris wolf." Sunny shuddered. "What is it?" "A demon wolf that has stalked these lands for centuries. It takes the form of a huge black beast with eyes of fire. Its bite does more than rend flesh. It leaves a stain on the soul that not even death can wash away." His eyes bored intensely into hers. "Once marked by the wolf, you belong to the darkness. It will torment its victims until they either perish or become monsters themselves." Jonas leaned back, his words chilling Sunny to her core. "So it's coming after Emma now?" she asked, "and giving us nightmares to feed off our fear?" He nodded grimly. "The wolf is cunning and cruel. It marked Emma, but your aunt disrupted its hunt. So now it targets you both, the ones who escaped its jaws." Sunny's hands tightened into fists. That thing had murdered her aunt and was terrorizing a young girl. She had to find a way to stop it. "How can I kill it?" she demanded. Jonas shook his head. "You cannot kill what is already dead, but there are ways to bind such a creature, trap it back in the darkness." He rose stiffly, retrieving a glass jar from a dusty shelf. Inside glowed a shimmering silver liquid. "This tonic will let you see the wolf's true nature," Jonas explained. "If you can bind it with the correct ritual, it will trouble you no more." He scribbled strange symbols onto a scrap of paper, then handed both items to Sunny. "Use these when the moon is brightest, but be warned, glimpsing such evil leaves a mark on your very soul." Sunny stood, tucking the jar and paper securely into her bag. "I'll do whatever it takes to stop the wolf." She met his piercing gaze unflinchingly before turning and walking into the woods once more. The shadows seemed to cling to her as Sunny made her way through the dense trees. She could feel the woods watching, waiting, but she would not falter. When the full moon shone high above, she entered the same moonlit clearing where her aunt had made her final stand. Taking a deep breath, Sunny unstoppered the glowing elixir. A bestial growl rumbled from the shadows as she lifted the jar. Hot breath fell across her neck, carrying the stench of fresh blood. Sunny whirled to find the Fenris wolf looming behind her, jaws open wide in fury. Without hesitation, she flung the liquid into its burning crimson eyes. The beast released an unearthly howl as the tonic seared its corrupted flesh. Sunny stumbled back, watching in horror as the creature's form dissolved, revealing what truly lurked beneath its living disguise. A writhing mass of smoky shadows swirled where the wolf had stood, glowing eyes still piercing through the twisting darkness. Tormented faces seemed to form and dissolve within the amorphous cloud, the lingering souls of its victims. The cursed entity surged towards Sunny, shadows enfolding her in an icy embrace. She cried out as the spirit's claws raked her mind, shredding her sanity. Dark whispers filled her thoughts, promising oblivion if she would only cease her struggles. With the last of her will, Sunny recalled the ritual and began to speak the words Jonas had given her. They emerged as a hoarse croak, but the effect on the creature was instant. The swirling shadows recoiled, a chorus of shrieks and howls rising up in protest. The binds were sealing it back beyond the veil, into the pit from whence it came. As the light returned to Sunny's eyes, she saw the creature twist and distort, shrinking down into the shape of a large black wolf once more. It glared at her with impotent fury, cursed jaw unable to speak the incantation to enforce her will. With a final snarl, it dissolved into mist. The clearing fell silent. The malicious presence that had tainted these woods for so long was banished. Yet Sunny knew a darkness still lurked within her, planted by the wolf's icy touch. She had won the battle, but part of the war for her soul had only just begun. The night air was icy and foreboding, seeming to seep through Sunny's bones as she crept between the skeletal trees. An autumnal wind moaned through the withered branches, scattering brittle leaves that crunched under her anxious footsteps. The full moon above cast thin slivers of ghostly light through the canopy, not enough to pierce the unnatural darkness that clung to the forest like a living shroud. This place was deeply wrong. The shadows themselves appeared almost sentient, writhing at the edge of her vision as unseen things skittered just out of sight. Every nerve thrummed with mortal dread of what lurked within this cursed wood. But Sunny could not turn back. Somewhere ahead, a young girl's panicked cries echoed through the oppressive stillness, a beacon calling Sunny to brave the horrors that awaited. The air grew colder and heavier with every step, tendrils of pale mist rising from the barren ground to enfold her. Soon she was enveloped in a chilling fog that obscured everything beyond the feeble beam of her flashlight. Still she staggered onward, her breath coming out in shuddering gasps that seemed to alert unseen watchers to her presence. Phantasmal shapes flitted at the periphery of her vision, vanishing when she whipped her head around, stalking her from just out of sight. Ahead, the twisting vista opened up into a small clearing, the fog thinning just enough to reveal a circle of towering oaks that marked the forest's heart. Dread clawed up Sunny's spine at the unholy energy that permeated this space, a nexus of ancient evil. She froze as a blood-curdling howl rent the silence, followed by a panicked sobbing. Gripping her flashlight like a talisman, Sunny stepped into the clearing. A hulking form loomed from the darkness, impossibly large, its jet-black fur drinking in the feeble light. Smouldering embers glowed where its eyes should be, exuding a palpable aura of hunger and malice. Before it lay a young girl, her blonde hair splayed out as she thrashed weakly, trying to pull herself from the monstrous wolf's grasp. "Luna!" Sunny cried out before she could stop herself. The wolf's fiery gaze snapped to her, scorching her very soul. This was no ordinary beast, she realized, but something far more sinister and corrupted, a child of the forest's ancient darkness. Luna's weeping took on a renewed urgency, summoning Sunny's courage. She grabbed a branch from the cold ground, holding it before her like a ward against evil as she stepped forward. The wolf's maw yawned wide as it reared back, ready to rend Luna's prone form. With a wordless cry, Sunny charged, bringing the branch down with all her strength onto its skull. The crack of impact reverberated through the woods. The creature released Luna with an agonized, ear-splitting howl that chilled Sunny to her core. Slowly, terribly, it turned to face her, hellish eyes burning with feral rage. This close, its size and malevolence were overwhelming, emanating from it in waves of ungodly power. Sunny trembled, but stood her ground, hands tightening around her makeshift weapon. With a guttural snarl, the wolf pounced, crossing the distance in the blink of an eye. Its teeth clamped down on her forearm with the force of a bear trap snapping shut. Sunny's screams joined the creature's howls of fury as her blood spilled hot over its jaws. The pain was blinding, white-hot needles shooting up her arm. She collapsed, darkness creeping in at the edges of her vision. The wolf loomed closer, savoring her agony, a nightmarish vision ringed in fog. As it moved in for the killing blow, a strange chanting rose over the pounding in Sunny's ears. Luna stood behind the creature, arms raised, clutching a small glass vial. With a final desperate cry, she flung its contents over Sunny's face. Silvery liquid splashed across her eyes, searing cold. Sunny's world shifted, reality unraveling. The clearing transformed into a swirling vortex of spectral shapes, ghosts and wraiths that wailed in anguish, tangled in a grotesque dance. And the wolf, where its hulking form had been, there was now only an amorphous cloud of shadows, pierced by the same fiery embers that were its eyes. Ancient, ravenous evil given form and set loose to feed. The spirit swirled around Sunny, keening and grasping at her with misty tendrils. She clapped her hands over her ears, but still she heard the susurros of voices worming their way into her mind. Dire warnings, seductive promises, all attempting to lure her into the forest's thrall. Bit by bit they pried at her defenses, threatening to pull her into their eternal torment. Sunny did not know how much time had passed, wandering delirious through the woods with malicious whispers dogging every step. After what seemed an eternity, her strength gave out, and she collapsed at the base of a gnarled oak. As she waited for the end, a glowing figure emerged from the trees. Luna knelt and gently lifted Sunny's head, sorrow and regret heavy in her voice as she whispered a spell to close Sunny's sight forever. Though relief washed over her as the spirit's wails faded, Sunny wept for the world of light and beauty now lost behind her sealed eyes. But Luna stayed steadfast at her side, patient and kind, helping her adjust and finding small ways to brighten her darkness. And in time, Sunny came to appreciate the everyday miracles she'd once taken for granted. Her path ahead lay veiled in shadow, but she walked it without fear, trusting that light can always pierce the gloom.